Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. Please visit our website, cscatlanta.org, for a complete list of live and recorded events. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter to stay connected to all future programs.
Welcome everyone. Today we have Amanda. She will be presenting on Meal Prep 101. She is an oncology dietitian with the Northside Hospital Cancer Institute. Amanda, thank you for joining us today, and I'm sending it over to you.
All right, thank you. Let's jump into meal prepping 101. All right, so what is meal prepping? So meal prepping is preparing meals or recipes ahead of time. A lot of people like to consider it leftovers. I like to think of it as purposeful leftovers. So it's not necessarily just what is left at the end of a meal that you've already eaten and prepared to, or, enjoy right then, but it's planning and preparing something to make your life or somebody else's life, excuse me, a little bit easier later on down the road. So this could be really any meal. It could be breakfast, lunch, dinner. It could even be snacks. There's no rhyme or reason to what it has to be. So what are some of the benefits of meal prepping? So meal prepping can relieve stress of, kind of planning meals ahead of time. It can have, kind of a lot of different benefits, reducing the stress, having quick access to balanced and nutritious meals or snacks, saving time later on, and even potentially saving money on convenience foods. If you have something already ready and prepared, that's kind of, right there for you, then there's no reason to kind of, go out and look for a convenience meal, because this is already convenient. So how do we get started? First, come up with a game plan before you begin. Make key decisions like what meal or meals are you going to start with? Try starting with the meals that are the hardest for you to eat. So if breakfast is not your jam, if you're not the type of person that can just wake up and eat a full meal, then consider that your first approach for meal prepping. That can be kind of an easy way to take some of that early morning decision fatigue out. Meal prepping snacks can be a great way to make sure that you're getting additional eating opportunities in throughout the day. If something's already kind of prepared and ready for you, it can be really easy to just grab that snack to kind of help maintain your weight as you kind of go through whatever journey you're on. Are you going to have the same thing every single day? Are you going to allow for versatility and for differences in meals or recipes? Are you going to do one? Are you going to do two? You don't want to do too many because that becomes a little overwhelming with just planning, prepping, and then, you have a plethora of options. So, we'll kind of talk about ways to kind of get some of that variety and versatility in. Also, who's going to be preparing these for you? If so, then make sure that you're voicing your preferences. While we really appreciate people offering their help, we do want to make sure that their efforts are working for us. So make sure that you voice your preferences on foods, on which meals, and what you think will work best for you. If this is something that you're preparing for yourself, make sure that you don't bite off more than you can chew, so to speak. Kind of start slow. Choose just, a few things to try at first. Also take things like taste changes or, your own personal preferences on foods into consideration. think of what you prefer as, kind of your stance on leftovers. Create a meal or a menu. Using the plate method or a meal prep formula is an easy way to plan. Doing a basic formula like having a protein, a grain, a vegetable, or a fruit. That can be a really easy way to make sure that the meals that you are planning are well balanced. Also, using the plate method, which I'll show you a picture of that in just a moment, is a great way to make sure that the container you're filling is well balanced and going to be meeting all of your needs. You can also use a meal prep matrix to keep things interesting and ingredient prep low. Preparing just a few base ingredients that can be mixed and matched with other things is a great way to get that versatility in without feeling like you're having to eat the same thing over and over and over. Making one pan of, a simple roasted vegetable can easily be mixed and matched with other, seasonings or grains or proteins for a variety of flavors. And then, utilize cookbooks and online sites to find recipes for kind of those base ingredients. So like I said, start slow. Choose to meal prep for only 1 or 2 days before committing to a full week. This will help reduce your initial time commitment and possibly reduce food waste if you decide against what you're preparing. Again, choosing a few base items that can be easily customized for different meals can keep things interesting throughout the week, and kind of lower that burnout on what you're eating. For example, things like rice, beans, chickpeas, potatoes, baked chicken, or roasted vegetables can all be kind of mixed and matched with other things to keep things fun. Choose items that can be, you can batch cook with things that you're already preparing. So if you are already cooking, something, rice for a meal that you're already preparing that night, then just cook a little bit more and then, freeze your quote unquote leftovers to use for your meal prepping later on. And then keep your finishing touches, save those for later, for right when you're about to eat. So things like lettuces, sauces, high browning foods like avocado or bananas, or crunchy foods that don't store well, save those to add at the very last minute. So that way things remain attractive and appealing. Because remember, we do eat with our eyes first. So if it doesn't look good, then we may already be turned off to it before we even give it a try. So this is the New American Plate that I mentioned. You can use this as a visual guide for planning your meals to ensure that they're balanced and nutrient dense. Focus on your fruits and your vegetables, which are excellent sources of fiber and phytonutrients. Keep your animal proteins to modest servings. So 3 to 4 ounces. That's about, roughly the size of a deck of cards, or decks of cards come in all different shapes and sizes now. So another rule of thumb is you can use your hand as a measuring tool. So kind of the base of your palm here, and then measuring 1 fingertip length up from the base. That's a good way to just kind of gauge 3 to 4 ounces of those animal proteins. And then, make sure that you're also including your whole grains. So things like brown or wild rice, quinoa, barley, those are all going to be great options. And then when you are planning to prepare your meals, make sure that you're getting a variety of foods. So if you're planning on using beans or chickpeas or lentils as your protein source, don't count that as your vegetable as well. We want to make sure that we're getting a variety of foods, and we don't want to double dip in the honey pot. While those are vegetables, if you're considering it your protein source, then choose something else to go, a different vegetable to go along with it. If you're choosing those beans as your vegetable, then choose a different protein to be paired with it. So that way we're getting a nice balance and we're fully meeting our needs. So these are some recipe resources. Again, look for recipes that can be utilized in a variety of ways to keep things interesting. Consider recipes that keep well, like roasted vegetables, baked, grilled, or stewed meats, marinated beans. And this is just one example of a meal prep matrix. This is a little bit more lunch and dinner time friendly. But don't forget, you can always use breakfast to meal prep too. Excuse me. Again, we've got our proteins, we've got our vegetables, and then we have kind of our base, which can be, a starch or a grain. And then we've got our flavorings to kind of mix and match. So with this, you could always do baked chicken with cucumbers and tomatoes and quinoa and tzatziki one day, or baked chicken, cucumbers, tomatoes with pasta and some olive oil and balsamic vinegar. Same base ingredients for the most part, but completely different meals. So some things to consider. Think about your overall taste preferences for leftovers in general. Are you a fan of leftovers? While this is purposeful leftovers, it is still preparing things, preparing meals ahead of time to be eaten at a later date. So think about, what your stance is on eating something on a Wednesday that may have been prepared on a Monday. Does that appeal to you? Are you okay with that? Think about the foods that you prefer, or you have a taste preference for, those. I know personally, I'm not a big fan of leftover pasta unless it's baked pasta for whatever reason. That's just my little quirk, but that is something that I take into consideration when I'm looking at meal prepping. Also, make things work for you. The idea of meal prepping doesn't necessarily have to be preparing those meals all ahead of time. It could just be as simple as laying out those ingredients, or taking the bulk items such as trail mix, them into individual bags to be quick, easy grab and go snacks. Put another snack option in those exact same bags. So it's kind of an already well-balanced snack for you. Consider what can be repurposed. So if on, Tuesday you were really feeling taco salad, but, come Thursday you really want pasta, think about what can be reused. So by making some pasta, mixing salsa with some Greek yogurt, and mixing your taco salad that you already had, you now have taco mac. So you're not wasting what has already been prepared. You're just repurposing it into something that is a little more appealing to your taste currently. And then materials and execution. So you will need durable storage containers. No matter what the internet tells you, you don't need to go out and buy all new Tupperware, or, kind of any sort of fancy, containers or anything like that. Think about what can be reused that you already have. Pasta sauce jars and jelly jars make excellent overnight oat jars. Deli meat containers are excellent for having snack trays and repurposing those. They stack really neatly. They're kind of nice and portion sized, which is great. Do consider your how you plan on enjoying these. Do these foods need to be reheated? If so, make sure it's in a durable container. So when microwaving in the same container, glass is best, just so that way we don't run the risk of having plastic become warped or damaged through the repeated reheating process. And then, that can also, cause food safety issues if the plastic flakes off during microwaving. But also consider the storage space that you have. How big is your refrigerator? Can you fit 5 days worth of lunches or 5 days worth of dinners in your refrigerator along with all of the other foods in there? If not, then start small, or again, just kind of tweak it to what works for you. And then choose a prep day. So again, is this something that you're going to be doing? If so, choose a day that you have, the most energy, and then kind of consider how you feel typically throughout the week. You don't want to kind of choose to meal prep on Sunday night if, Saturday is kind of your worst day and you're finally starting to come out of not feeling well, or if Sunday is kind of your day that you're not feeling well. We definitely don't want to do that. So I did want to include this. This is just a refrigeration guide from the FDA. So another thing to consider is make sure that you're pairing foods that store well, and then have the same refrigerator shelf life. So we don't want to be pairing something that has a 2 to 3 day shelf life in the refrigerator with something that has more of a 7-day shelf life, because then we run the risk of having higher food waste if we're having to throw out that 2 to 3 day food along with the 7-day food because it's already mixed. So do make sure that you're kind of keeping that food safety in mind when pairing foods. And then, I would recommend not doing more than 5 days worth of meals at a time, because again, we kind of encroach on that food safety. So if it's easier and better for you, again, start small, start with 1 or 2 days, see if that works for you. If it works and it seems like a good fit, then maybe try going up to 3 to 4. And then you can always kind of adjust as needed. So just as a summary, meal prepping can help you plan and have access to nutrient-dense meals and snacks. Using the plate method or a matrix can be really beneficial in making sure that you're getting nutrient-dense meals and very balanced meals, and you're not kind of having, the same thing. Consider your individual taste, desires, and eating preferences. And then above all else, make it work for you. The best way to ensure that you're going to be successful in meal prepping is figuring out, kind of what works for you and not listening to what quote unquote should be. So I really liked kind of this visual because, our snack meal prep could just be putting a couple of things together in a container with some dip that's easy to go, or, wrapping those breakfast sandwiches to put in the freezer, or it could be a container of individual lunches that we just grab and go. So it can kind of work out however you need it to. And I really enjoyed this because, meal prepping can look however you need it to.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org, or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on upcoming programs.